Welcome to Dark Nexus. My name is Rob. I'm the game master for this adventure, and we've got 4 players on the podcast. They are...
I'm Katie.
I'm Paul.
I'm Robert.
And I'm Johnny.
What you're listening to right now is our little introduction for anyone who stumbles across the feed and wants to know what we're doing here before they jump in. We're an actual play podcast. What is that exactly for someone who doesn't know?
It's a podcast where people play role-playing games.
Yeah, we're playing first edition Pathfinder. Somebody who's never played a role-playing game before, what does that mean? What does playing a role-playing game consist of?
It is telling a story. You embody a character and make choices that this character would make in whatever situations the game master puts us in.
And then it's adjudicated by dice rolls, which add a random element into the fun.
So it's just like when you're a little kid playing pretend with your friends, only there's an element of chance with the dice roll.
Only there's like a 420-page rule book.
That's so true.
I'll tell you, little kids have a lot of rules.
So we are playing the Strange Eons Adventure Path. What is that like?
It's terrifying.
It's hard.
So in terms of category and genre, it is a Lovecraftian, weird horror
Survival
adventure.
horror.
Survival horror.
It should be said.
Scared, broken protagonists in a confusing world that is trying to kill them. And what is the feel? What's the tone or the style of our show, Dark Nexus?
Yeah, it's pretty dark. It has to kind of go along with the flow of the adventure, which is, again, trying to kill us at every turn, and full of mystery and unknown things and otherworldly things that are effing terrifying. So the tone of our show plays into that. And I think maybe unlike many other podcasts out there, we're approaching this more like an audio drama.
Yeah.
That's what we went into it with, like, how can we tell this story effectively?
I would totally agree with that, and I would add on, too, that I think that there's a depth to which we take the things that happen to the characters.
There's a lot of role-playing that we take time to do. We take time to really develop these characters, their relationships with each other, and to explore what they're feeling as they develop.
And their relationships with all the NPCs that you bring to life, which is a big, big part of the world.
I love Katie's use of the word mystery. As you'll find out when you listen, the characters don't know much of anything about themselves, and part of what they're doing, in addition to trying to survive, is to figure out who they are, where they are, what's going on.
And that's something that makes this unique, is that typically when we're in a role-playing game, we are creating our characters before we ever sit at the table. We have a sense of where our character background is, what our relationship to the world is. Here we are meeting without that background information. Part of the book is our characters have amnesia, and so while we're playing, we are also solving the mystery of who we are.
And who we are to each other.
Yes.
Yeah.
And how those things change and adapt.
And who we were to each other.
So what's the flow of this first act like? What can people expect in terms of the overall arc of the story?
Well, it starts off with a big mystery, right?
Yeah. Whole lot of confusion and weirdness.
Yeah.
There's a big prologue of abject confusion.
And it kind of ends with a lot of mystery.
Yeah, it kind of does as well.
But it moves from that initial mystery into like exploration and investigation and figuring out what's going on and what's the next right thing to do to sort of get us out of this thing that we're in.
Yeah.
And then at the end, it was a little bit of a meat grinder.
Oh, yes. There's like
Kind of a dungeon crawl.
There are many episodes where there are so many things that are trying to kill you. It's rough.
In terms of what listeners should be aware of, while most sword and sorcery type role-playing games involve a lot of violence and killing, this is specifically a horror adventure. And we're definitely not setting out to be hugely explicit or upsetting, but there is content from time to time that might not be for everyone. There are references to torture, to the threat of violence against children, to slavery, to body horror, and the list does go on. If that little short list right there is enough to make you think, maybe this might not be for you, maybe ask a friend or a loved one who you trust to listen first to give you some advice on whether it is for you. And if it's not, we do hope you'll come back and try out whatever adventure we run next, which will almost certainly be in a very different style, whatever it ends up being. And the other content warning I want to put out there is that the subject of mental health is dealt with in this story in terms of horror genre tropes and role-playing game mechanics, and the occasional use of terms, for example, like so-and-so went crazy. If you are someone who does not care to hear the very serious topic of mental health discussed in terms like that, we completely respect that. And again, hope you'll check out whatever our next venture may be. Anything to that little list?
We use the occasional bad word.
We sure do. We sure do. They
we
definitely
do.
come up. And finally, to wrap this up, just because of our lives and our schedules, we had to record the entire first act of Dark Nexus in advance. So we welcome and encourage anyone's observations and feedback. Just know that we won't be able to incorporate changes in how we make this show until we start working on Act 2. Thanks for checking out the feed. We hope you listen to the show.
Thanks so much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.